Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose of Metalholic Magazine and of course Metal Nation Radio, and joining us tonight, the inimitable, the Canadian thrash icon himself, Mr. Jeff Waters of Annihilator. How you doing, brother?
The elusive Jeff Waters. I haven't been down to the States in forever. I'm hiding out in Canada, in cold Canada here, but I'm doing great, and thanks for having me, Rustin.
Absolutely, and it's true. I understand, the scene down here, although the retro scene is picking up a little bit, the scene down here just isn't as conducive as it is over in Europe. I mean, I'm just excited to see you're starting to play some more shows up there in your own country, which has been a drought for you for a while.
I'm lucky as hell that there's a thing called the internet, and metal fans, and even our own country of Canada and the States have discovered us to their liking or dislike, or puzzlement, I guess you could say, is how can a band have put 14, 15 records out, been touring nonstop and putting records out, but they never hit their home country and never get down to the United States, supposedly the biggest market in the world, and the guy's home country. So, yeah, we got a lot of instant reactions of who the hell are these guys and why do they think they're too good to come to their own country or the States. But I love answering those questions. They're awesome. Basically, we had a little run in North America from 89 to 93 and did pretty good. Had a good time on Sony and Roadrunner, and we had some, what else? Never Neverland, Set the World on Fire records were out here, and pretty much stopped after that in North America for us, and we just kept going where it didn't stop. And by the time this, metal seemed to come back in the sort of traditional metal style was coming back, or thrash metal, or a combination of both, which is what we are, we just couldn't get back in. Just labels didn't want to sign it, and the tour agencies didn't want to book us, and so I just kind of said, well, okay, fine. I'll wait. And that's kind of what I've been doing, waiting, and now it's like, okay, wait a minute, this is, can't wait till I'm like 70 here, that's not going to cut it. So we're doing our best to try to sort of sneak in there, but the internet has been at least sort of building a reputation or a chatter about us for the last 4 or 5 years, and good, bad, and in the middle, and that's actually great for us because now we're starting to get a little buzz here, and the more people talk about us here, the more likely we're going to get a shot to actually play for all these great metal fans.
Well, I would definitely be excited to see you guys come down here, and hopefully, based on the way Feast did and the upcoming new album, Suicide Society, which is phenomenal, and we'll talk about it in a moment. Hopefully, though, with that, the buzz will just continue to grow, and you can pick up where you were starting to go there in the late 80s and early 90s. But, I was looking at the dam, like 2015 technically marks the start of the band's fourth decade. Does that seem at all surreal to you? I mean, when we were young...
10. Wow.
When we were young...
It's got to be 3. It's got to be 3. It can't be 4, is it?
I could be losing my mind, but...
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Oh, my God, I'm old. Okay.
But there were no bands. When we were young, growing up, because I'm 51, you're 49, there were no bands that had been around for 20 or 30 years, and here you are... 30 years in the bank and getting ready to start that fourth decade. That's...
Yeah. It's again, the internet saved my butt in some sense over here as far as people go. Annihilator, Alice in Hell, wasn't it like 20 years ago? Or that's the last good album they ever did or something like that. And now, slowly metal fans are able to go, well, wait a sec, they had 14 records after that one, and they're able to find some of them over here and watch videos at least, and it's been a heck of a long career, and I've always loved bands like in the position I'm at now, where this is my life, and this is what I love to do, and I've been able to do it my whole life. It's bands like Testament and Exodus and Overkill, bands like that I fully support and download on iTunes and buy their actual CDs, even though they're friends of mine, and I could probably get a box myself for free. I still support these guys, and because they're the guys that, like Annihilator, that have been through lineup change after lineup change, not because the guys that run the band are jerks. It's because times have been really tough for metal bands since 1993 onwards to, recent years, and you just can't keep guys in bands. They have families, they have jobs, they have commitments, they have debts, they have to pay for their living, and bands like Testament, Exodus, Overkill, and Annihilator just seemed to a lot of fans like a revolving door of, what a joke. Why are these people, keep hiring people? But they didn't understand that these bands love music more than money, more than anything else, and they were just trying to survive and do what they had to do to keep putting another record out and keep touring and keep doing this. Example, friends of mine, Bobby and Dee Dee from Overkill that run that band, they don't need Overkill to make a living. They've been making a great living outside of music for decades, and they do it because they love it. Anyway, that's kind of like it's the kind of group of the metal bands in the middle, the non-big four there. Those bands I mentioned and a few others are the ones that just never stopped. They never broke up for 20 years because times were tough and they reunited, and these guys just never stopped. So anyway, there's my rant.
I'm just sitting here thinking, I mean, I grew up in the era of the new wave of British heavy metal, and Saxon's going to be here in town next week, and I'm excited for that. And they're still putting out great new music, just as Annihilator is. So, it's the classics that still resonate with so many metal fans.
It's cool for me because a bunch of years ago I signed with a relatively new label called UDR, and that label was mostly made up of people from SPV, which was a very classic heavy metal and thrash metal label for so many decades. And UDR had the first signings were Motorhead and Saxon, and then Annihilator came in, and I never lost Wheels of Steel. It wasn't like we signed with UDR Records and now, Saxon, I remember that band. This was stuff that we listened to on a monthly basis, you know what I mean, in our lives. And to just be in Europe for your career and watch any given weekend from May to August over there, and you can have I don't know what the similar festivals are in Canada or the States, but to have like in Canada we'd have Heavy MTL, or you guys would have, I know Mayhem is not necessarily the traditional heavy metal festival, but any given weekend from May to August in Europe, you can get on a plane for $150 and go anywhere in Europe and see one of 50 festivals, and 20 of them are going to be metal festivals. 5 of them are going to have more than 10, 15,000 people at them.
Yeah.
And it's just such a different culture. And the sad part is that going from 89 to 93 and just being on the internet, seeing and hearing things for so long about Canada and the United States, and going to shows at the Bell Center in Montreal and Vancouver, and seeing what's going down in the States, it's sad because bands obviously have just backed out of playing in the States and Canada, but the fans are there. It's just incredible. It's just like so many people are being told, you need to like this band and that band, this bigger corporate kind of, this sounds like a typical old fart talking, but like a sellout commercial corporate kind of metal band that they pretend they're real metalheads, but they just put the name metal on their bio and tried to copy bands, and now they're playing in front of 10,000 people. It's sad because there are so many good fans in North America that just really deserve Creator, Destruction, Exodus, Slayer, Anthrax, Annihilator.
Right.
You just go on there. But we hope to get back and maybe do a tour. And we've had lots of really cool bands invite us to go there. But it's always the catch at the end of that was the bands, the well-known bands would say, but you have to have a deal and some support. And that was never the case for us for decades.
Right. Well, let's talk about music. Well, I enjoyed most of Feast, the last album. Suicide Society is, for me, your most solid offering since perhaps King of the Kill, and your most intriguing. I love this album. Now that you've had some time to step back and absorb it a little bit for a few months, tell us about the new record from your perspective.
Well, it was a shock for me when I write and record all music and play all the guitars and bass and produce, mix, engineer, master. I do pretty much everything in the band except sing. And I sit down with a drummer and write the drums with him basically because I've already got the idea on a drum machine. So it's pretty much my hobby, my love, my band, my business. It's all in one. And you could call it a solo project in the studio behind the scenes, and then it's a band when we actually tour. But this one was a little scary because my singer and partner in the band, Dave Padden, was also a guitar player on tour, and pretty much almost 12 years, and we never got into arguments. We had silly little things, but we never had issues with, him getting paid not enough. It was always, he was happy with that, and there was never any big issues. And the last 4 years or so, he was kind of losing interest. I didn't want to discuss it with him because I was kind of scared of losing the guy, but then he hit me with a bomb just before he was supposed to fly in to record this record that was already finished. I demoed the vocals and everything and written it all. And he just said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but it's my time to bow out now, and I just don't want to do the traveling." And I know Dave, and I know I shouldn't push because it sounded like maybe there was something else going on. So I figured I'd cover my butt and say, "Hey, do you need more money? Is it something I'm doing, or the music, or is there anything happy with it I can try to fix?" He goes, "No, it's nothing to do with you. It's the traveling." And so something was going on. So I started the album off in a panic mode. The album was done. In other words, the writing was done, and the recording of the music. But it was kind of like, now what? Is the whole thing over, or what do I do? And I looked around for other singers, couldn't find what I was hoping for, and said, "Screw it, just go back to." I sang on 3 records before, and I didn't do a great job. It was just, we had an album called King of the Kill I sang on, and it was a very, very big record everywhere but North America. So I was kind of like, oh my God, now I got to learn how to do this live and play and sing. Holy crap! This was 1995. But then I did the next few records later. But we're talking like, dude, I'm 49 here, and now I'm going to be the lead singer and guitar player / frontman. You got to be kidding. So I went in and said, do I find a singer, or do I take this as a challenge? Because I haven't had a lot of challenge musically for years, in the sense that when we tour, I just walk on stage and play sometimes the same songs I've been playing for 15, 20, 25 years. So it's a blast, but there's no real challenge in that. It's just plain fun, which is great. That's the way it should be. But the singing thing, I said, you know what? I'm not going to sing on this now. I'm going to take a few months of vocal lessons on this, and I'm going to try and get rid of the stuff I don't like about my voice from the past, and then look at my strengths. And my strengths, I was thinking, what do I sing in the shower? What am I actually able to almost sound good at? And I wrote it down: Lane Staley, Ozzy Osbourne, Dave Mustaine, James Hetfield. And that's it. That's what you're getting vocally on the record. I don't think there's much else other than some Jeff Waters in the past vocals. You're getting those 4 singers on one record. Maybe not as good as those guys, but that's just what's coming out of me for some reason. And because our stuff is so diverse, you hear one song, the next song is probably not going to sound anything like that. It's caused a little bit of stir on the English-speaking side of the internet over here on this side of the ocean, where the first sort of single we came out with a video really had a Megadeth / immigrant song musically in there, with this bit of Annihilator thrown in too. But the vocals had a little Lane Staley, Dave Mustaine, so a lot of people over here were going, oh my God, is this album all going to sound like influenced by Megadeth and all that? And I'm like, no, it's just that one bloody song. But you are going to hear a lot of that on the record. I don't try to cover up my influences. I love them. I love all these bands, and it comes out in my music.
Well, I think it played out very well. Now, of course, you sort of alluded to this. This means, you being back in front of the mic, playing lead guitar. Are you just doing this for the record, or are you going to take this out on the road like this and try it out, or are you thinking of still getting a new vocalist?
Well, we did 6 festivals, and just got back from it maybe a week ago, and of course, here I am. Okay, I'm going to sing after all these years, and let's give it a shot. And you throw me in front of 80,000 people at Wacken. Great idea, Jeff. But that's pretty well what we did. We were only going to play the Wacken Festival, and then we thought we'd do some more festivals around that. If I was going to be singing, I wanted to get out there and get get sort of a pre-tour warm-up to find out just how much I either suck or how much I have to really work at and what I need to do. And it was a bit of both. I had some good nights, good shows, and I had some really horrible notes, and just the playing and singing is really difficult to do. And then guys I think the top guy in metal to do that is not Hetfield. I can give him a second place on that. It's Dave Mustaine, because he's playing all these crazy picked riffs and weird timing things, and his voice is singing, but not in the time that he's picking. And so he's got it's almost like playing piano with your right hand's doing one thing and your left hand's doing something completely different. Mustaine's got, it's very underrated for how challenging that is. And that's kind of what I'm setting my sights on is, by the time we start our headline tour in the end of September, we're doing about 2 months in Europe. I want to be completely, totally rehearsed and practiced. And I want to just make this one huge challenge on me to actually film this stuff in the fall and play it back and go, hey, that wasn't bad. It's tough. I mean, I could just lie and say I'm going to kick ass and I'm the best, but no, I'm not.
Oh, it's definitely Mustaine has always blown me away with that. Dave Meniketti from Y&T, one of the first guys I ever saw doing that, still blows me away.
That's true.
But,
Gary Moore was good. A different kind of thing because he'd play simple blues when he's singing the words, but then as soon as his last line or word was sung, he'd break into guitar. That's what Hetfield was famous for. And Glenn Tipton from Priest was extremely brilliant at this. What he would do and does is and you can listen to any old Priest stuff, and you'll clue into this whether you're a musician or not. Whenever Halford's singing, the guitar is usually playing one note or strumming a chord. Simplest thing you could possibly do on a guitar. And as the second Halford is done singing the line or the sentence, wham, there's this killer guitar riff comes in. So it was almost like a subconscious template that Tipton was using in his songwriting, and it was the most genius thing because it meant anytime Halford opened his mouth to sing, all you were listening to was him. And as soon as he stopped, then all you'd hear is the guitar riff. And it was just, that's something Hetfield does brilliantly, where he keeps it simple while he's singing, and then the amazing picking or riff comes in when he's done the singing part. And but Mustaine was a freak of nature because he can do the crazy riffs and sing melodically on it in a different time. It's just. But anyway, I don't need to kiss his butt. He sells enough records.
Alrighty then. Well, let's take a quick break here, and we'll listen to some classic Annihilator going old school, and then we'll hear something new from Suicide Society, and we'll be back on the flip side with more of Jeff Waters' Annihilator here on Metal Nation Radio. Welcome back here on Metal Nation Radio. I am Rustin Rose of Metalholic Magazine, talking to Jeff Waters of Annihilator. Let's get back to talking about the new album. Lyrically, you were back to doing all the lyrics on this album, although you've done that quite a bit. But did you have any recurring themes weighing on your mind when you wrote this one?
Yeah, I mean, like Annihilator's lyrics have always kind of been everything. They've been, sometimes they're about serious topics or personal things. Somebody in a family died of cancer. I wrote a song called Phoenix Rising about it, or, depression, or something happened to me or my friends or family, something you see on the news, maybe touching on environmental things once in a while, but not really preaching just random things. You could even just almost watch the news and come up with one or two ideas for a song. And sometimes being Canadian, I'm going to say this one, because being Canadian, we're kind of like in the middle of two different kind of scenes. There was always a bit of the German end with Scorpions, Sept, and, later Rammstein and stuff. But it was the UK and the United States were the influences for the Canadians. And thus you would get, because of our population of maybe only 30-something million here now, you would not get a hell of a lot of artists from Canada, but every one of them stood out, like Devin Townsend, 3 Inches of Blood. And I'll go back to Bryan Adams, or, you just got these Voivod, Razor, Exciter, Anvil. Devin Townsend, of course, but you just get Rush. There's a great one. Triumph. You have bands that are so different than the United States and the UK bands, but somehow that's who birthed us. You know what I mean? Both of these countries. I have no idea what the question was. I completely lost it. Lyrically, there you go. So we have the Queen on our money here in Canada still. We were British, right? So we have inherited a very slight bit of their humor, and we've got our own silly, goofy humor up here, and that comes out in my lyrics, and I don't try to hide it. We have songs. I think one of our big songs from our biggest record called Never Neverland was about Kraft dinner, macaroni and cheese. So you know what's going to happen when you come out with certain songs. You know that you almost go, thank God I'm not releasing records in the States or Canada right now, because can you imagine a Lamb of God fan who had never heard Annihilator, and here's the title Annihilator, and here's we must be thrash metal, and then they hear a song like Kraft Dinner or a sort of punk rock, hard rock song about macaroni and cheese, and they would just be so let down. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of what happens to us is I just write this stuff, and sometimes it's slightly poetic and intelligent. A lot of times it's not, and a lot of times it's direct and even cliche, cheesy. And some of it's really good, some of it probably isn't, and some of it is right in the middle. And that's what you got with this album, too. It's just a matter of, is this a step up from the last one, lyrically or musically, or as an album, or is it not? That's just the only way I can look at it now. I think it is, but every artist will say that after they create their baby,
Right, and I know how that goes. There's always, as you've said before, you look back on it, it's like, there was a stinker there was a stinker here, but for the most part, You know,
I rate them out of 10. I always do, and I always sort of give myself. Right now, I finished this record. I think it must have been April, somewhere around there. I have to finish the first headline tour we got in the fall, and by January 2016, I'll be able to come back and put a number out of 10 on this one. I can rate them all.
You spent a lot of time in your early days hanging in the studio and learning from some of the masters like Max Norman and whatnot. Who did you learn the most from, or what was the greatest lesson you learned from that period for the studio to be a producer and whatnot?
I think I had about 3 or 4 learning experiences piled into the 10 years. I think the first one was in Ottawa. I had a Fostex 4 and a Tascam 4-track cassette machine that I ended up borrowing, and one buying and one borrowing. And that's how I made my early demos. And it was simply because I didn't have the money to go into a studio. And so I learned, just how I read the manual over and over again. How does this 4-track thing work? When, remember I was a teenager, so it wasn't like I knew all about this stuff. So that was a good experience because the bass player didn't show up, so I grabbed a bass guitar and I learned how to play that, and I thought, okay, this is how the bass could go. And then maybe the drummer didn't show up, so I went behind his kit at rehearsal and I recorded myself playing what I thought was going to be cool on the drums to put to my riff. And then the singer didn't show up, so I said, screw it, I'll write the chorus now. So that was kind of the first learning one. The second one was when we did our first album, Alice in Hell. I was kind of, lied to is a real direct way to say it, BS'd about what was going to happen when I moved from Ottawa to Vancouver. I was told, I'm your manager and I'm going to get you a nice place and a car and furniture and put you in a world-class studio and all. And basically I ended up buying a used futon on welfare, our social assistance program, no money, completely starved, and was a skinny, unhealthy stick, and was put in the graveyard shift 2-3 hours every couple of nights into a little demo studio. And during that time I met one of the 4 engineers that was basically working for free, volunteering to help this kid out that's from Ottawa record his little Annihilator demo-y record. His name was Paul Blake, and he basically worked for Fender, and he sort of taught me the basics of engineering. The next step was we Alice in Hell and Never Neverland records, they really hit around the world for us. So the second record, I got to go into the big studios and sit in on sessions with Peter Collins and Jim Barton, doing the Empire Queensryche album, so I got to watch that. Skinny Puppy, Katie Lang was there. I was frequenting Little Mountain Studios, which is one of the biggest studios in the world at the time, and would sit in and I would run errands for Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, getting their diet yogurts when they were trying to clean up and get healthy. And a lot of these guys didn't realize that I was selling hundreds and hundreds of thousands of records, but I was the guy that was getting them pizza and yogurt. And I was just doing that to be able to sit in and see how they record and how they do all this stuff. So that was number 3. And number 4 was when I ran into a pile of money on that 4th album called King of the Kill. I bought a couple of cars, a house, and specifically built a recording studio and brought that demo engineer, Paul Blake, in as a house guy and had him show me how to use it and do it all. And I put all these things. And the last thing was they had magazines called Recording and Mix Magazine, and they had all these publications back in the 80s and 90s that were, since we didn't have the internet, there was literally a dozen magazines relating to studio recording, and I would literally take scissors and clip out, make scrapbooks of things that producers and engineers would say in the interviews that I thought I could apply to what I was doing. So you really wanted that long an answer, did you?
I figured you're going to say, well, I learned this from Max Norman, or I learned this from Bob Rock,
and that's it. That's all you get. It's great. I go over when I talk to journalists and stuff. The ones that have been doing this regularly with me for overseas and stuff, they're like literally have 1 or 2 questions, and they say, "Just go, Waters."
Well, see, and now I know. But the funny thing is I've been doing this as long as you have, and it's weird that this is the first time we've ever talked. But all right,
yeah. All right, I appreciate it, though. That's good.
Absolutely. So last question before we get out of here, because I know you can be fair and honest and critical of your own work and other people's as well.
Yeah.
You've always been pretty honest about the fact that almost every album these days, yours or anybody else's, has some stinkers on it. In your mind, what is the last perfect album you can think of, regardless of genre, one with no weak tracks?
Ooh. Well, I mean, the ones that come to mind would be Back in Black, Number of the Beast, but, oh boy. Go after that. You could almost go as far as Rust in Peace and Painkiller. You could get there. But then you could go, well, maybe Rust in Peace and Painkiller were perfect albums, but you could always pick out maybe one or two or three songs on Painkiller that I just didn't want to listen to or I'd skip over. But that's just personal, right?
Right.
Oh, boy. Back in Black's got to be the biggest, best album of all time. And, Appetite for Destruction. I'm going way back. You wanted to know the most recent ones? I'd say, gosh, I don't know. I'd have to say in that Painkiller, Rest in Peace era, you could probably mention a few after that, maybe, and I might go yes, no, but that's the ones that...
That's a pretty sad indictment, isn't it, of where we're at musically.
I got a 20-year-old son, and he's, he reminds me, Dad, you're acting like an old dad now, that kind of stuff. By the way, I talk about how the good old days and when metal was big in the 80s up until 92 or 91, all that stuff, but... It's actually, I really think it's not just getting older. I think clearly the music industry and the metal industry changed, and the good news is the internet and metal is coming back. Those are the two great signs. I'm just waiting for those couple of bands to just come out and just shock everybody and go, what is this? This is unbelievable. I'm just waiting for that. I mean, there was hope for a while there, like you had bands like... and I'm not saying this is necessarily the kind of music I like or don't like or anything, but you had bands like Trivium and Lamb of God and all that, and Machine Head and all these bands that were, okay, are they going to be the next? And Avenged Sevenfold and Bullet for My Valentine and all that stuff. And you're like, okay, just give me a Pantera for Christ's sakes, come on, give me something here. And there's great things about those bands, but we're still waiting. I mean, the Slipknot was great, but where is the Metallica? Where's the Slayer? Where is that? Even a Testament of our times would be great, although go out and support Testament for sure, because they need to be, all the middle level bands really need the help and deserve it, I think. But
absolutely.
I don't know. I'm waiting for those couple of bands to come out and make everybody go, what is that?
I think the biggest thing is getting back to the songwriting. I think the stuff that we grew up with from the 70s and 80s, that nuance that was in music, the nuances are missing. People have forgotten how to write lasting, memorable songs. And I think once that comes back and we get away from all the electronics and the Pro Tools and all that stuff and get back to the song itself, the organic nature of it, you might see some of those bands start to come up. And they're here and there. There's Hailstorm, I think, very, very good new band. Over in Europe, you got Triosphere. Their last album was brilliant. But it's getting to that next level, which is really hard because the mystique of rock and roll is gone. There will never be another band like a Led Zeppelin or I think a Metallica, because with this new internet generation, social media and everything, I don't think you have that mystique that created the rock star feeling.
Yeah, and the concept in the past was an album, a record, a CD, a cassette of an entire performance, of a feeling at the time, and a single studio session at a studio produced a complete album called Number of the Beast, or the whole thing. And it's also too, I mean, I think it's not just the bands or the musicians. It's got to be, you got to say, well, hey, the labels have to do their part at some point. They have to at least just go back to a slight bit of the past where they would say, let's not just sign these guys for one album. Let's do here's an example. I've been fighting for this for a long time, and I've been able to do it now since 2010, and this is fantastic because this is our third album since 2010. I'm one of the few, not saying this is a great thing for boasting, but I'm one of the few artists that my last deals have been one-offs, one-album deals, because labels are always like, oh yeah, we'll do a one-album deal, and we want 2 and 3 and 4 for options. In other words, wait a second, you mean I can do a record and I can plan for the next year of what I'm going to do, but then you have the option to say, see you later at the end of that. How am I supposed to go out and work my butt off and plan on a whole bunch of things with fans, endorsers, press, whatever we're doing, when you have the power to just say, screw off in a year? Whatever happened to that idea of, if you like the band genuinely and you want to sign us, even though times are hard, you need to put a little commitment in there and sign us for a couple of records so you have some kind of motivation and financial motivation to do something, to actually do your job, instead of throwing it out on iTunes and trying to, rape in a couple of bucks at the end of the year when the band gets zero. So the labels have a big responsibility that they're not living up to. Some labels are actually giving a damn right now, which is slowly a good sign. But I think there's a bunch of things. It's a whole combination, right?
That's the other thing. There has to be the investment from the music industry itself, from the labels, or it's going to continue to stagnate. Jeff, Waters, Annihilator, the new album, Suicide Society, out August 18th, I believe, or not August 18th, September 18th.
Yeah, September 18th, yep. You get the day right. That's perfect. Yeah, we're starting off a tour there, and we hope to heck that finally this is the one time that it comes through that we get to play in the United States and our home country, Canada. Please, USA, do not think this is about you, because we even snubbed our own country during all this, according to the internet.
Thank you so much for giving us 30 minutes of your time to chat, and we're hopeful we'll see you in North America, but we're excited just to have the new music, and we hope you continue.
Thanks so much, and appreciate it.